Good evening. It's great to be here, an honor, and somewhat of a surprise when I found out that I was receiving the Norman Mailer Prize for Poetry. We don't associate Norman Mailer immediately with poetry any more than we immediately associate Keith Richards with autobiography. But life is full of surprises. I would imagine if I had met Norman Mailer and said I was a poet, he would just punch me in the stomach, the way he does so many people. Did I even know that Norman Mailer wrote poems? I mean, of course, his gigantic accomplishments in fiction and nonfiction overshadow any of that. He said he was devoted to what he called the great bitch goddess, the great novel, The Bitch Goddess, known for its heroic effort and also the promise of success and celebrity and money. I didn't know he had time for the little bitch of poetry. But here it is, a book published by Random House, a book of his poems and drawings. And the title of it is Modest Gifts. Can you think of anyone but Norman Mailer that would be the last person to have the word modest in any of his titles? He did write a little, he gives that away though. He wrote a little introduction, and in it he said, quote, "Modesty is too harsh a stricture to maintain all the way through a 2-page preface." So I'm going to give you a little taste of his poetry. One is just a conceit. I won't even read the poem, but he has a poem in which his beloved tells him that his eyes are beautiful, and they were, I suppose. And he responds to her by saying, "The only reason my eyes are beautiful is because they have looked at your breasts." Boys, have any of you come up with something anywhere nearly as good as that? And then there's a lot of loopiness. I mean, this little passage, for example, out of context, but "Look, your handkerchief has a hole in it. Let me give you a new one. Don't you dare. This way I can blow my nose and still see what's going on," said Rimbaud at the age of 6. We don't know. We don't know what that means, but. And then also the smartass, the guy with the sly tongue. "By God, if I had a mama like you, I never would have reached the age of 6. And in one poem, and it takes place in England, and there's a kind of surprisingly surrealistic combination or conversation between an epigram and a boutonniere. The poem ends with these two lines. "Go fix the flowers, fuckface," was the king's reply. Anyway, I mean, that's a taste. I don't know if that'll send you running out to get to get modest gifts, but so I'm extremely grateful to David Ebershoff, an assiduous, delicate, and insightful, caring editor, to have come to introduce me, and the lovely coincidence that he was also Norman Mailer's editor. And I'm going to end. Howard Rothman said I had to read a poem tonight, so I'm going to read a poem. And I know that 4 glasses of wine is often conducive to writing a poem, but not very conducive to listening a poem. But this will probably take just over a minute. And I thought it was, slightly overlapping Mailer if I read this poem called The Great American Poem. If this were a novel, it would begin with a character, a man alone on a southbound train or a young girl on a swing by a farmhouse. And as the pages turned, you would be told that it was morning or the dead of night, and I, the narrator, would describe for you the miscellaneous clouds over the farmhouse and what the man was wearing on the train, right down to his red tartan scarf and the hat he tossed onto a rack above his head. Eventually, one can only read so fast, you would learn either that the train was bearing the man back to the place of his birth or that he was headed into the vast unknown. And you might just tolerate all of this as you waited patiently for the shots to ring out in a ravine where the man was hiding, or for a tall, raven-haired woman to appear in a doorway. But this is a poem, not a novel. And the only characters here are you and I, alone in an imaginary room, which will disappear after a few more lines, leaving us no time to point guns at one another or toss all our clothes into a roaring fireplace. I ask you, who needs the man on the train, and who cares what is in his black valise? We have something better than all this turbulence, lurching towards some ruinous conclusion. I mean the sound that we will hear as soon as I stop writing and put down the pen. I once heard someone compare it to the sound of crickets in a field of wheat, or more faintly, just the wind over that field, stirring things that we will never see.